Can you say and spell your name and give us your job title?
Sure. I'm the chairman of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party, and my first name is Steve. My last name is Simonides, Simeonidis.
So Steve, we're 18 months away from the election. Florida is obviously the king/queen maker state in every single way, the most electoral college vote. We spoke to a political analyst this morning who was saying he doesn't think the Democrats have much of a chance because the economy's doing so well, etc., etc. There's no doubt it's going to be a tough fight, but what's the Democratic Party's strategy to win overall, not just in the state of Florida?
I very much disagree with that analyst. First of all, when he says the economy is doing well, who's it doing well for? Wages have been stagnant for a significant portion of Trump's tenure, and even before that. And what's more, that tax cut that he promised would bring relief to middle-class workers hasn't done anything. It's benefited the top 1%, and the top 1% doesn't win you elections. It's the 99% that does.
So what's the strategy then for the Democratic Party? You've got more than 20 candidates at the moment, but when things narrow down, what are you doing with boots on the ground? How are you going to get people kind of energized for the election?
We have a wealth of folks in Florida that are not yet registered, and we're working on registering those voters right now. We're working on coordinated efforts between our clubs and caucuses here in Miami-Dade and the organizing corps brought down by the DNC and the Florida Democratic Party. Next week, after they get out of their training, we'll have 90 individuals, boots on the ground, from our local communities, an incredibly diverse group. About 50% of them speak Spanish, about 20% of them speak Creole, and they'll be down in our base communities communicating with both voters and registering new voters.
So this for you is about getting boots on the ground, about getting all those invisible voters to actually register and take part.
Yes. Right now, before we have a nominee, our focus is building the infrastructure. So when that nominee is selected next summer, they can just walk on into the infrastructure that we've already created and be successful.
Is this kind of replicating what President Obama did back in the day when he really utilized social media and got people energized? Is it a similar model?
Absolutely. We're utilizing relational organizing, which is exactly why we're taking folks from the community and we're using them to go knock on doors, to make phone calls. They know these communities, and who better to represent the Democratic Party but the members of these communities?
What other strategies have you got going forward? Because that's kind of one infrastructure element, if you like. But what about on the other issues?
Well, in terms of the other issues, I don't think that there's an issue that we don't defeat Trump on. When it comes to climate change, the city of Miami is drowning. We're already seeing climate change-driven gentrification here, and Donald Trump still believes it's a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. When it comes to insurance, health insurance, he had both chambers of the House and the Senate. He had the presidency, and he did nothing about health care. When it comes down to it, the tax cuts that he provided did nothing to help the middle class. They only helped the top 1%.
How do you then convince, because it's always about independent voters, especially along the I-40 corridor. Mm-hmm. That's the one, the I-4 corridor, even as a road to political heaven, as a political analyst has told me for the last few years. How do you convince those independent swing voters that the Democratic Party is the right choice, that whichever candidate wins is the right choice?
Sure. I mean, right now under Trump, we've got children that are being locked into cages, some of which are dying. We have 2 million Americans that go bankrupt every single year because of healthcare costs. We've got 2.3 million Americans locked away in prisons, and we've got stagnant wages. This is America under Donald Trump. I think in the past election, he could run on false promises, and people believe those promises. But now he's forced to run on his record, and his record speaks for itself. Thanks so much.
So who do you like out of the 20-something? How many do we have? President Bill Clinton once famously said that every US election is about the economy, and that right in my ear hole. President Bill Clinton once famously said that every US election is about the economy, and that may be the Democratic Party's biggest challenge. If job figures and financial markets are still doing well, political analysts say the Democrats will focus on the president's behavior, making this an election about morals, not numbers.